It's time for the Savvy Realtor Podcast. I'm Walter Storholt alongside Angie Cole, the owner and broker in charge of A. Cole Realty, serving you throughout the Triangle, teaching you about the ins and outs when it comes to buying or selling a home. You can find the team online by going to acolerealty.com. That's A-C-O-L-E realty.com, or by calling 919-578-3128. That's 919-578-3128. And now it's time for one of the top realtors in the Triangle, Angie Cole, and the Savvy Realtor Podcast. It's time for Did You See This? Here on the Savvy Realtor, looking at some of the interesting and fun news that we find throughout the real estate world. Sometimes it's on the bizarre side. Sometimes it's on the more interesting side. This is on the kind of dumb criminal side, Angie. You know, lots of radio shows have that dumb criminal segment, so why not have us jump into it on our program here today? Cops and an agent catch a fake buyer. This news came to us from the Louisiana area, where a woman was arrested. She used fake income verification documents and was trying to buy a multi-million-dollar home, and a local realtor spotted some of the red flags and alerted authorities. So kudos to the realtor, and the woman was arrested, and sounds like they avoided getting scammed in that situation. Got me curious, have you ever had to deal with a scammer before?
I have, unfortunately. And, you know, first of all, that one woman, I mean, that's loan fraud is what that is. So I don't know that necessarily the realtor would have been scammed, but it's more of the banks, right?
Sure.
You have to give true documentation over for them to verify. So, but yes, I went to, or actually had a piece of land, a lot in a beautiful neighborhood in Wake Forest that was listed and on the market. And all of this sudden, so we get a buyer for this home, and it's someone that one of my buyer specialists is representing. That buyer is super excited about building their dream home. And whenever it's time to get the due diligence money handed over to the seller that I'm representing, something started to seem funny. You know, he was talking about, oh, well, he's getting his banks changed around, and it was very sketchy. And let me remind you that the seller was not local, was stated he was traveling out of the country. But the funny part was, you know, I did my due diligence and I checked on the deed like I'm supposed to, and this was legitimately the seller. Right? So it wasn't like I didn't double check. This person was truly indeed the seller. Well, I started to get a little bit suspicious just how things started to pan out. And pretty much I could tell that this guy was just looking for us to send him money, right? And a lot of questions about money up front. So anyways, I did a little bit of investigations, and I think this might need to be my second job, but
some sleuthing.
So I went into MLS and I looked at where this lot was sold in the past. I contacted that agent who represented the buyer, who would have been the last seller, right? I know this all seems confusing, but contacted that agent and asked the agent, I said, hey, just let you know I have this home on the lot. This is my client. I said, do you know, I see that it was never listed in MLS, but it looks like there was a transfer of hands from your client to my client. Do you know what happened there? And she was like, wow, I'm surprised that they wouldn't come to me to list their property, right? And this was supposed to be their forever home. Like eventually they were going to build on this lot.
Okay.
And then it's raised as a red flag because my listing manager had mentioned to me that when she was out there putting a rider on the sign, that the next door neighbor said, wow, they're selling? Like everyone was shocked, right? So that agent that I reached out to, and this very long-winded story, but the agent that I reached out to, she ended up passing along the true owner's contact info for me to reached out to them, and they were in shock. So come to find out, this piece of land was illegally deeded over to this new person that I was representing.
Wow.
It was all fraud and a scam, and FBI investigation got into it, and come to find out, there was a fake attorney. It was all fake. Now, it truly did get recorded with the courthouse somehow, but it was all completely fraud, and come to find out this gentleman did this in more than one county. And so I don't know the outcome of it because it was best for me to kind of step back, and, that was on a whole nother level. But talk about scam, right? And the buyers for this, the new buyers, of course, were just distraught and bummed because they were so excited about building their dream home. But thank goodness we never went to closing, because I don't know that the true sellers would ever be able to retrieve their property back if it passed through that many hands.
Wow.
So crazy story, right?
Could you imagine being the actual owners, but you haven't built your property yet, and then like a couple of months later you show up and there's already a house built?
There's a new home on your lot. Yeah, and that's exactly what would happen, because they live out of state. They had no idea and no way of knowing, right? So,
what a
luckily,
mess that would have been. Wow.
Oh my, and the sad part is I don't know that there would have been anything they could have done at that point, right? I mean, they could have legally gone off after this so-called seller somehow, but there's no way to get back your land, I don't think, at that point when it's now been sold off to a new person.
That's a whole movie right there. That's a lifetime movie.
It really was. And it's, and I go back through it, but they even said there was the investigators and everything. Of course, I had the cops calling me, and they said, there was nothing you could have done differently, but it's crazy. It's a crazy world we live in.
Well, that is really interesting. You had a little bit of impersonation going on. We had some fraud. We had some, all sorts of stuff in there. So it was really interesting story. Wow, that's pretty cool. Not cool that it happened, but cool that you guys discovered it, of course. So
Sure.
There you go. Well, don't try and scam anybody, okay? Just stop doing that. Dan, who edits our show, Angie, who creates the podcast version of the program, puts it online, the back-end wizard of the program, he was selling something on eBay just this past week and found a buyer really quickly and was all excited, and then they asked for him to include a $200 gift card when he ships the device, and then he'll add an extra $200 to the sale price when he submits payment. And Dan said the best line. He said, I don't mind you trying to scam me, but now you're just insulting my intelligence. Right.
Like I'm not that stupid. Come on. We see a lot in the real estate market, so, beware, tenant beware, where scammers will take active listings, as happened to us several times. They'll take active listings. They then post them on maybe Craigslist or Zillow as being for rent. And they'll tell these people, we'll just go out to the property, take a look around, pretty much. You would think someone would be smarter than this, but I think a lot of people have fallen for it, but once in a blue moon, people are like, why is there a for sale sign in the yard, with this other girl's, info on it? But they are posting it as being the owner that is renting out the property. And go out there, just walk around, We'll mail you the keys. So it's, once again, just be cautious of scammers for sure.
They find all sorts of weird little ways to try and insert themselves into the situation. So good to know you're on the lookout for them and beating them back whenever they come at you. So that's fantastic. If you want to work with a real estate agent who's keeping those scammers at bay, that's a terrible transition, but we're going to roll with it anyway. Give Angie a call. You can get in touch anytime at 919-538-6477 if you want to call or text Angie to get in touch and find out about buying or selling your home, learn the ins and outs of the processes. All you have to do is call or text Angie at 919-538-6477. Well, luckily, Angie, in that situation, you did not have to learn from a mistake. You figured it out as you were going through and got it right the first time around. But we know that nobody is perfect. And whenever we start out in, any mode of our careers, anything you're doing for the first time or doing new in life, sometimes you'll make mistakes. And so I just wanted to see if maybe we can have a little humility on today's show. Also see if we can maybe underscore the importance of experience on the program today. And maybe we can look back to the beginning of your career and see some areas where maybe you realize now, looking back many years later, that you either made a mistake or just maybe not even a mistake, but just how you've sort of evolved over time with your experience to become a better agent. You game for this?
Yeah, let's do this.
Okay. So let's talk about preparation, first of all. Can you maybe tell me about a time way back at the beginning when you were either underprepared, or I guess you could have been overprepared, or maybe you overthought a situation with a buyer or seller?
Yeah, sure. When representing buyers, we have to, it's our job and our role to share our expertise, right? To, give guidance as far as material facts, point out locations, areas, maybe things that could hurt them when it comes to future resale, right? But, I have put a sock in my mouth before by just giving too much personal feedback, because my opinion as far as the look or the style of the home versus their opinion can be completely different. And, that's something that as a real estate agent, we need to make sure that we are not overstepping our boundaries on giving opinions too much. We're there for the advice, to educate them, to share our expertise, but not give our personal opinion. So, before I've maybe made a comment like, oh, this kitchen's a little small. And they're like, oh, I thought it was perfect, and I don't know, specific instances because I've learned, I've been doing this for 12 plus years now. So I've learned a lot throughout this, decade plus that I've been in real estate. So I don't know specific, instances, but I know definitely in the very beginning, there's been times where almost I've said things that almost could be insulting because they loved it.
Yeah.
Or, maybe not even insulting, but it almost made them question their how much they loved a home because of something I said.
It sounds like you almost used to show the homes as if it was going to be your home and not their home. And
yes, yep. So once again, it's our job to kind of buyer beware, make you aware of situations, or what. For example, this home backs up to a busy road. This is something you might be okay with, but the next buyer might not. And I just want to put that out there, but you decide how you want to handle it,
Right.
But when it comes to giving, feedback on colors and layout, we have to be cautious on how much of our personal feedback we give.
Just taking some of the opinion out of it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I know you're a master
learned.
communicator today, but did you make any mistakes in the past when it came to communicating with clients?
Oh, yeah. I have one client, Mike, we've actually had the pleasure of helping him, I think 4 or 5 times now. Long time ago, I didn't clearly understand how the contingent sale addendum worked. And there's, with paperwork and all of the real estate paperwork that we get into, I mean, there are so many different, exclusions, this thing overrides that. I mean, it can get a little, it's where you need to get a real estate attorney involved, right, to make sure you clearly understand what this statement means. But yeah, I communicated that the contingent sale addendum read one way, and it indeed did not. I pretty much stated that, we can accept this offer, and should a better offer come along, you can move forward with the other offer. And that's more of, I was taking what I've learned in new home sales when I was an on-site agent, because they always have, or not always, but most of the time they have a kind of a first right of refusal. But it doesn't work that way with resale homes. And so I end up selling Mike's home for free because I made a big error, and we received another offer on his home. And we had been on the market for a little while too, but under contract, received a second offer that was a cash sale, and it was actually above where our current offer was. And Mike couldn't move forward with that offer as I had explained he could should that situation arise. So yeah, I ended up selling his home for free. So to make up the loss that he would have had. So there's definitely been some mistakes with communication, where, I didn't communicate something properly as far as maybe an addendum or something. But, we live and we learn. We make those mistakes and we correct them where needed. And that's exactly what I did. And Mike, we have still, after that, he even then used us to buy. So it's all good. It worked out. But yeah, there can be mistakes with communication.
Yep, and it's good to have those lessons early on, because then you make it better for many, many years to come. And I know that that's what you guys have certainly been able to do. It's one thing to make a mistake, another thing to then learn from that mistake, which is a very positive thing. And I would imagine, Angie, too, that for a lot of agents, not even just focusing on you here, just agents in general, it's a constant learning process, because kind of like your career arc when you started out, sort of on the buy side, then you've got to learn the sell side when you kind of flipped over to that side, and then you became a broker and leading a team, and now you've got multiple employees, and so now you're a business owner in addition to being an agent. And so it's just kind of, there's all these different little layers that any agent's going to, as their career changes and grows, they're constantly being exposed to new processes and new rules and regulations and all those kinds of things.
I was in new home sales in the very, very beginning, and the way that process works is completely different from resale. And we have to also remember that our contracts, the North Carolina Real Estate Commission, actually every year, they send out new contract addenda. Not all of them are updated, but, fairly often. For example, this past year, the new thing that was put into a lot of the documents was wire fraud addendum. So going back to scamming, this is a big thing that was updated last year, but our paperwork is constantly being changed and updated. The overall contract, I think it's been, maybe about 7+ years ago that it was actually completely changed as far as how the due diligence period is now, something that we work through. But yeah, there is constant changes when we have to always make sure that we are, getting the education that we need so we can advise our clients properly.
Great points, Angie. One more little example here as we talk about just learning from past mistakes. I tend to be a pretty agreeable person, so it's hard for me to say no to people many times. It's something I have to actively work at. I like to tell people yes, make them happy. I know this about myself. So I would imagine working with clients, you're a pretty positive person as well. Was it difficult for you to kind of learn the word no or to disagree with a client and not just kind of tell them what they want to hear?
100%. And I'm a yes person anyways. I always like to be a people pleaser. I like for everyone to be happy. I don't like disagreements. So that's just me as an individual. So that, of course, feeds into my profession as well. But over time, I have learned to say no. And I would say the times that have really stuck out to me that I've been just more positive and confident about saying no is working with a client. Working with a client, it has to be a win-win. Just like they might be interviewing agents and they might choose me as their agent. But you know what? If I feel like I wouldn't be the best representation for them, maybe they are not in line with my ideas, my thoughts, just a way of doing business, I can say no to them. So that's a mistake that I've made in the past where, every client that came along, I felt the need to work with. And now that's not the case. Now, I love our business. I'm in this business, of course, because it's my profession. I love what I do. But there are, unfortunately, some clients that we have interactions with that, it's not a positive experience. And sometimes, we have to fire the client. I did that recently, but it
Wow.
needs to be a win-win. So I am definitely a yes person and always, yes when helping out. I go above and beyond for our clients. But, sometimes we just have to put our foot down and say, no, that's not the way that we operate. That's not in line with our culture. And you know what? Let's part ways.
Yeah, it sometimes is necessary to do, and that's got to be on the same page. You need to enjoy the relationship, and it's all a big part of the process. So hopefully that was a helpful segment for you as a listener in thinking about working with an agent, thinking about buying or selling your home in the future. If you've got any questions, you want to talk to Angie about the process, you can see she's learned a lot over her time. That's how she's built such an incredible team at A. Cole Realty, and it's interesting to look back at some of the mistakes at the beginning of a career and then how you learn from those mistakes and move forward. We've all certainly fallen into that boat. And obviously the goal, you learn from those mistakes so that you can limit them going forward. And that is what Angie and her team have certainly done. Fun segment. Thanks for playing along and being so helpful there, Angie. If you've got questions for Angie, you can call or text 919-538-6477. That's 919-538-6477. Angie will show you how she and the team will help you get your home sold for top dollar or help you get into your dream home. The strategies and communication tools, all the things that they utilize these days to help those dreams come true for clients. So if you want to reach out again, call or text Angie at 919-538-6477. More coming up on today's show. Stay tuned. This is The Savvy Realtor with Angie Cole.
It's time for the mailbag. We want to hear from you.
Corbin says, a friend of mine told me to try to avoid paying mortgage insurance on my loan. What do I need to know about that, and how can I avoid it?
Yeah, so the norm is if you invest or put in 20% into the home price, you then can avoid paying mortgage insurance. So that's 20% down payment will eliminate paying that mortgage insurance. And the whole point of mortgage insurance is protection to the lender. So they're collecting a little extra every single month. And, they get to put that away because the less that you're putting down on your home as far as a down payment, the more likely that you would be to default on the home, because more than likely you're not as qualified as a buyer versus someone who financially can put down 20% into the home. Now, there are some other loan programs where you can eliminate that mortgage insurance as well, but the known is 20%. And just remember that, although in the beginning maybe you don't put down 20%, maybe you put down, 5%. After you own the home for quite some time and you get to that point where you've paid off 20% of the home, you can get it reappraised, work with a lender, refinance, and you then can eliminate that mortgage insurance at that point. So it doesn't always have to be something that you do from the very beginning.
It's a great question, Corbin. Thank you for submitting that one to us for sure. Susan's got another question here as well as we get ready to wrap up for this week's program. Susan's from Cary and says, my husband is going to relocate for work in about half a year. When's the best time to start the process of selling our current home, and what are the first steps to consider?
Yeah, Susan. So congrats, on the reload. That's super exciting. But it is never too soon to start the process when it comes to selling your home. There's often times that I meet with sellers and they say, Angie, I need to have my home on the market in the next week, and we can make that happen. But many times, they are a ways out. Maybe they're 6 months out. Maybe they're a year out. And it's never too soon to start that conversation because, once we go through our listing presentation with you and give you guidance on the steps of the process, immediately we can send our professional stager out. She can give you your to-do list so then you don't feel overwhelmed and just bombarded with, oh my goodness, now I have to get my home show ready really, really fast because it's all last minute. Instead, we can go ahead and send her on out, even if you're, looking to sell your home 6 months in the future. So, if you're thinking about selling your home, whether it's now or even a year from now, start the process of meeting with a real estate agent. And so our team, we would love to meet with you and do a listing presentation with you. And the whole point of that is we can tell you more about ourselves, tell you about our team setup and how we operate, go through our marketing plan, and then, of course, share with you comparables and a net proceeds sheet because that's probably most important to you.
You've been listening to the Savvy Realtor Podcast. I'm Walter Storholt alongside Angie Cole. She's the owner and broker in charge of A. Cole Realty here in the Triangle. And if you have questions for Angie, we invite you to go online to acolerealty.com. Listen to past podcast episodes on the website, read the blog, and all the great information, including the option to find a home right there on the website. That's acolerealty.com. And you can also call Angie with your questions, 919-578-3128.